Without, anyway. I had to rush to beat Debbie up here. What this month is all about is how do we empower our life? How do we live the life we're meant to live? How do we live 100% of, and I need to put on the thank you, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How do we function 100% of who we are and what we are? What do we do? That's what this month's about. It's not about the physical, like self, growth, and expansion. Gosh, we're not talking about the physical beingness that we experience. Many of us are expanding. Amen, brother. If we were to look back at the life we've lived, all the experiences that we've had in this lifetime, and bring it up to the present moment, we would know that our story involves every bit of what we're talking about today: self, growth, and expansion. It's kind of interesting. And so we're saying that, well, okay, we're all going to grow, either physically or emotionally. We're growing. That's a given fact. But the question is not, are we going to grow? The question is, how are we going to grow? What are we going to grow? Kind of interesting. And so today what I want to do is start by saying that we're going to Pizeloize this a little bit. And we're going to say that we're going to spend some time talking about growing the soul in our experience. Now, some of you who are new thoughters would say, he's nonsense. How do you grow a soul? The soul doesn't need to be grown. It's already everything that it could possibly be. It's all that there is, future, present, and past. No, we're talking about something else. Growing the awareness that we are a soul, and we live as that. That we are under the awareness, that we have the awareness, that there's something special about us that transcends the physical. That really takes dominion over the physical, that's not under the domain of anything that's happened to us, and that it's on call at will. We call it the self or the higher self. I don't know what we need to call it, but we know that there's a divine energy that we can rely on, that will respond to us. It's always on call when I'm facing a situation that's beyond my grasp physically, because we have this access to the dimension of all possibilities. And as explained and as shown by a situation that happened with two 70-year-olds. And that was Bill and Sally. They decided to go visit their grandchildren, where? In the Mojave Desert. And so when they arrived, the children said, we need to go and buy groceries, so we'll turn the house over to you. Well, they decided to, while the children were gone, to relive their youth. Because there's a dirt bike in the garage, and they always, when they were younger, they always loved to go together and ride the dirt bike. So they get on the dirt bike, and they're having so much fun, and they're driving along, and they leave the paved road, and they go up this kind of unused dirt road, and while they're having a ball, they're really exciting, and they're young again, and they're experiencing youth, and all of a sudden, they're going a little too fast, and the road turned a little bit. They couldn't take the turn, and they were thrown from their dirt bike. So Sally's lying there, and she could hear Bill groaning, so she knew at least he's alive still. However, I don't know what condition he's in. But she was a fundamental Christian person, and she said, Jesus will save me. Isn't that interesting, Jesus? We look at New Thought, we look at Jesus as the Christ conscious, it's the consciousness of the divine. So she said, Jesus will save me. And so she didn't allow her mind to be cluttered with this fear and doubt and all that. So what she did, she prayed. She prayed that this divine energy that was on call for her always would always respond, and they'd be safe. And sure enough, in town, the sheriff was enjoying in his favorite restaurant. He was enjoying his morning cup of coffee, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden he had this urge to go outside. He didn't know what the heck was going on. So he goes out the door, and he's surveying the desert, and he's wondering, what's going on? Then he had an urge to get into his patrol car, and he found himself driving. He said, what's going on here? And then he took a right turn on this dirt road that he very seldom, if ever, patrolled. And he's driving along for several miles, and finally he came up to the two people lying on the side of the road. Isn't that cool? So the realization that we're much more than a body with a mind, that we have access to this divine energy that's on call to us, but there are things we need to do. We need to actually unclutter our minds. We need to get rid of all the garbage that's in the mind. We'll talk about that again in a few seconds ago. So today what I want to do is we're going to talk about the catalyst, that energy, that emotion that allows us to demonstrate and to participate in and to actually deal with all of the stuff that's going on in our life. How do we do that? It's the catalyst, and we'll be talking about the catalyst that actually demonstrates the emotions that we'll have in dealing with what's going on. It's the catalyst that determines whether we're going to grow or not, both physically and mentally. It's a catalyst that causes us to function properly in the given moment. And what is that catalyst we're talking about? It sounds like a simplistic idea, isn't it? But the catalyst we're talking about this month is awareness. We need to be aware of who we are and be willing to use it as needed. It's always there for us. And that's what this month's all about. There's kind of interesting things going on here because we need to realize in that awareness of the self, in that awareness, and when we talk about the self, John, thank you, the big S, and I don't like to use the word big S necessarily, but being a former Marine, you don't go there. Sorry. I'm going to get chewed out when we get home. But we have access to that. But we have to come to that realization and that awareness that our life, our physical experiences, we are totally in control of it. There's no one else that can control it. What I experience on this day and how I experience it is up to me. There's nobody that I can look at to blame. If I'm distressed, then I need to think about this. And one of the most major things I need to do is clear my mind of the gutter. The clutter and the gutter, actually. Clear my mind of the clutter. I should never have talked about Marines. Spending 14 years with them, and then you become a minister. Anyway. But what does this mean, clearing my mind? And what that means is I need to take a different viewpoint and do kind of a mental diet and figure out what's going on. What I like to use is kind of obnoxious, but I love baked potatoes with all the stuff on it. I know that's talking about the expansion here. But I love baked potatoes. But what I do when I have that thought that I have fear or doubt or limitation enters my mind, the committee in Mary Elaine used to call it the committee in the head. When I have those, I want to think of them as rotten, stale, smelly potatoes. Isn't that crazy? It sounds nuts, but it's good. When I have that kind of thing, it's a rotten, stale, smelly potato. And then I visualize myself as having a gunny sack on my back. And we can all try this. And when that thought comes into my experience, what do? It's a smelly, rotting baked potato, not baked, but it's a potato. And I take that thing and I throw it in the gunny sack. Visualize that. Okay, and here we go, we're facing something, and fear comes into my mind. My God, I can't handle this. It's a rotten, smelly baked potato. I wish I hadn't said it. And I throw that in my knapsack. And we will find that if we continue to do that. Mel died many years ago. Jack Dyer was my dear, loving friend. He was kind of obnoxious at times, too. But we had this Tuesday night group, and we were talking about this very issue, and he said, Angela, I'm not negative. And he says, and I'm never negative. And he said, I said, okay, Jack, I have an agreement with you. Let's do a 1-week mental diet, and you kind of keep a check mark every time you feel yourself going negative. He came back the next Tuesday, and he said, my God, I had 247 negative thoughts. And I stopped counting. That we are not even aware of how detached we are from the truth of our being. So our mind is so darn cluttered with this garbage that we actually prevent the flow of the divine energy that's available to us on call. The word is that God waits for us to wait for God. So we need to clear that mess up. But there are other things we need to do. We need to actually clear our minds of that, but we need to also take that gunny sack and take it out to the dumpster and dump it. And we need to know that we've done that. And we've got to be consistent with it. And we've got to be uncompromising with ourselves. This is my life, and I need to run it the way I choose it to be, and I want to empower it. I need to take that gunny sack of smelly potatoes and throw it into the dumpster. And it's kind of fun to kind of visualize all this stuff, but actually in reality, that's what we need to do. And that's our 7-day mental diet. And if we don't, then we're under the domain of this thing. But it's got to be, we can't be compromising on that. When it's gone, it's got to stay gone. And we need to stay with it. Give you a story about that. Here's Rose. Rose is having pains in her stomach. She's really having a serious physical situation, and she put up with it for a while, but then finally she goes to the doctor. Her daughter insisted that she go to the doctor. So she goes to the doctor, and the prognosis is you have stage 4 advanced pancreatic cancer, and it's spread throughout your body. And people who have that, 90% of them, they don't make it within a few days. And so the diagnosis was that she's not going to make it, and she's only got a little while to live. Now, talking about the garbage in the mind was replenished because all of a sudden she's fearful and she's doubtful and she's scared. But then she talks to a friend of hers who happens to be a nurse, and the friend said this, Rose, there's a study that's going on in Germany that they're working on the immune system. They're working on that, and then they're building up their immune system, and they're having some successes. So what does she do? All of a sudden, she eliminated, again, the garbage in her mind. She went to faith and trust and hope, and the fear went away. So she goes there, and the nurse said, it's expensive, but, you can't take it with you. You might just go ahead and use it up while you're alive. She goes there, and after several weeks, she started feeling better. The pain subsided, and it was gone. And she felt so good that she went home, and the feeling was, I defeated the cancer. So about a few weeks later, she's over at the mall shopping, and she runs into the doctor that gave her the diagnosis that she's only had 2 or 3 days to live. And he was shocked. He looked at her and he says, my gosh, you look wonderful. What's been going on over the last year or so? And she says, she said, after you gave me the diagnosis that I was dying, she said, my friend who's a nurse told me about this study that's going on, this research in Germany, so I went. And I feel great. The pain's gone, and I feel I defeated the pancreatic cancer. And then he got very belligerent. He said, that's nonsense. Those are no quacks. Too bad you wasted all your money on something like this. There's no way that this cancer can be cured, not a stage 4 that's metastasized within your whole body. And then he belligerently left. What did she do? And that's what we do. When we try to clear the garbage in our minds, then something else comes up. And what do? We allow it to re-enter our thought processes. And that's what she did. And what happens is she went into fear, doubt, and all the things that keep us from being 100% of who we are. Powerful spiritual beings with creative powers. She shut out the flow of this divine energy, and she was gone. She passed the world within about 2-3 weeks. She was gone. This is what happens to us. And so this month is the idea of awakening, but the awakening is awakening to that which we are, that we are that. We're beyond being a body with a mind, that we are actually this dynamic resource of the divine, that we are an activity, and we have within us the power to